Hey everybody, happy Friday. Boy, do we have a big weekend coming up here on TV. And actually, to be honest, it might well be the biggest weekend in sports television that we've had in probably a decade. And to be honest, the reason why is we have never had this many consequential football games on the same day that really impact the entire top 25. So that's a lot of fun. We have a an amazing baseball race for the pennant as we are just 1 week away, frankly. On Sunday, a week from today, this coming Sunday, that'll be it. That'll be the end of the regular season, and there's still some pennant races going on. There's still the hot race in the east of the American League between the Orioles and the Rays. That one got tighter last night. The Rays are now only 1.5 game behind the Orioles, with, as I say, a week to play. A big series for Toronto. Toronto wants to make the playoffs as a wild card team. They are facing the Rays this weekend. Meanwhile, Cleveland still wants into the race as well, into the playoffs, and they are playing the Orioles. Those games are being played up in Cleveland. So we got a lot of that interesting stuff. There's also in the National League. There's the Dodgers and the Giants in a slugfest over there. The Dodgers have long since won the West, but the Giants still remain a factor uh, in the potential of a playoff spot. So all kinds of crazy stuff going on tonight, and hopefully you'll get to see it. Apple TV's game of the week tonight, 10:30 East Coast time, is going to be the aforementioned Giants and Dodgers. They're playing at Dodger Stadium. That will also be the Sunday night game on ESPN. So it's Apple TV tonight, Sunday night. It's on ESPN. We've got the Rays and the Blue Jays on MLB Network tomorrow. That's a 1 o'clock game. Okay, so getting you caught up there on that. Quick note here. Immaculate, good to see you, my friend. Hope that all is going well with you as we talk a little bit about television here today and all the crazy matchups we have. Let's start tonight in college football. We got Wisconsin at Purdue. That's a 7 o'clock kick. Our buddy Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman on the call of that game. We've got NC State at Virginia in an ACC battle. That's 7:30. That's Arsh Shamar and Andre Ware. Paul Cartella also on the call. Boise State, San Diego State. That's on CBS Sports Network. That is a 10:30 game. Okay, and we have one other game, which is a Mountain West game tonight. Air Force at San Jose State. That's 10:30 on FS1. It's our boy Dan Haley and Petros Papadakis, the man, the legend. Petros, it's good to have him back on the call. And Danny Haley, who is with NFL Network a lot of the times. He also subs as a play-by-play guy for FS1. So good to see Danny back on the mic. And Petros should be a good team. So that's your games for this evening. Tomorrow, what I did is I picked what I thought were the best games in the noon time slot, in the 3:30 time slot, and in the 7:30 and late night time slots. Okay, that doesn't mean that there aren't other games of consequence. It doesn't mean there aren't other games of interest. It just means these are the games that I think are the single most interesting. All right, guys. So let's kind of move through that. Noon, Florida State, Clemson. Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy. Now, this one is important for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that if Florida State is going to make it to the playoffs, they got to get by Clemson. Now, Clemson has not played well, as of late. There's been all kinds of speculation. Has Dabo Sweeney lost it? What's going on here? Look, I am not throwing Dabo under the bus. I don't think that Clemson has lost it. They, like Alabama, they chose not to go through the portal. They decided, okay, look, we get 4 and 5 star, players. We don't need to go that route, and so they didn't. And Florida State did. Mike Norvell went out and got some, star athletes that were on other teams who decided they didn't want to play there anymore, and now they're playing for Florida State. So FSU's at number 4 in the country. Clemson has had some bumps along the way. This one is for, I don't think there's any question, this is for the ACC title. It's an ACC title game, in the 4th week of college football. So FSU, Clemson, and that's a noon start on ABC. Gotta check that one out. Now, number 16, Oklahoma at Cincinnati. Again, that's on Fox. Gus Johnson, Joe Clack on the call. That's the big, big Saturday on Fox. Oklahoma, along with Texas, basically are the 2 best teams in the Big 12. Cincinnati, getting their first opportunity to play a Big 12 game since they moved from the American over there. Cincinnati hasn't played well. They've had a couple of good showings. I don't think that, will they put up a good fight? No doubt. But will Oklahoma end up being, prevail in this one? Think so. Auburn at Texas A&M. That is a noon start. Bob Wischusen, Robert Griffin III on the call there. Auburn, Texas A&M. This is a big one for Jimbo Fisher. He can't lose this one. I mean, they're already. If he didn't have a $95 million buyout, he wouldn't be the coach at Texas A&M right now. But Auburn, Auburn has played well on the road. They went out into Cal and won last week, and now they take on Jimbo Fisher at College Station. That should be a very good game. As we said, ESPN has the game. Bob Wischusen, RG3 on the call. So let's move over to the 3:30 games. Now, the 3:30 games have got some amazing ones too. All right, number 19, Colorado at number 10, Oregon. Joe Tessitore, Jesse Palmer on the call for ABC. Now, this is the Dion and Coach Prime, and he's now going to Eugene, Oregon to face a very good Oregon team with Bo Nix. And, let's be honest, they're not just on paper. This is a better team than Colorado. This is a better team than Colorado has faced all season long, all 3 games of it. You could take TCU's team, you could take, Nebraska, and you could take Colorado State and take all the good players from those 3 fine teams, and you still wouldn't be as good as Oregon. So Oregon's going to find out. Now, here's the thing. Oregon's defense is very good. They also have depth. Colorado can score on anybody. All right, I'm willing to go there with you. Colorado can score on anybody. This is a 21-point spread. All right. Now, a lot of people, and this is the crazy part of it, are saying 21 points of a spread is disrespectful. All right. Well, okay. It can't be disrespectful because Vegas puts the line out there. All right. And depending upon whether the line moves up or down, that's where the money goes. So, for instance, if it went from a 21-point game to a 17-point game, that would mean that the money is going on Colorado, right? So that would be the case. If it goes up and goes from 21 to 24, then that means the money's going to Oregon. It's you can't, it's not disrespectful. It is what it is, okay? You can't change the line. The only way that your line moves is when people spend money betting on one side or the other. So this is a statement game, all right? If Colorado can keep it close and play well out there in Eugene, then respect. If they get blown out, will that stop the Deion Sanders and in Colorado buzz? I doubt it, but it will be an interesting game. So, Colorado at Oregon. Now, the other interesting bet will be if it ends up being the top. For the past 3 weeks, Colorado has had the top-rated game in all of college football. If that happens this week with all the games that we have, heaven knows what might happen. All right, so again, mark it on your calendars for tomorrow, 3:30 ABC, Joseph Testelor, and the former Gator quarterback, Jesse Palmer. Okay, number 15, number 13, Alabama. That game's being played in Tuscaloosa. It's on CBS. It's Tom McCarthy, the pride of Philadelphia, and Jason McCourty. Here's the thing here. All right, Alabama played horribly against South Florida last week. They lost the week before to Texas. A two-loss Alabama team 4 games into the season is unheard of. As a matter of fact, the last time that happened, most of the kids who are attending this, Alabama at this point, if you're a student, you're not alive. Okay. Ole Miss, of course, has Lane Kiffin. Lane, a lot of people, myself included, think that when Coach Saban steps aside, that Lane Kiffin is going to take his place at Alabama. So few people know how to coach against Coach Saban better than Lane. So Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, number 15 in the country, number 13 Alabama, McCarthy and McCourty on the call, should be, along with Ross Tucker. You don't want to leave Ross out. Should be interesting. All right, UCLA and Utah, 3:30. That's on Fox. Jason Benedetti and Brock Hewitt on that call. All right, this game. All right, you know what? Utah has played well. This is the game that Cam Rising. I don't think if Cam Rising doesn't play in this game, Utah doesn't win. This is a much better UCLA team than they're getting credit for, and I really think that this is going to be a test for both Utah and UCLA. It's going to be a very close game. It's UCLA's defense is the best defense in the Pac-12. I know that's not saying much, but they're number 8 all overall. I'm sorry, in all of college football. They're allowing about 2.4 yards per carry, stopping the run. So Utah comes into this game. I really just think they have to have Cam Rising on the field playing for them. He has. They've done a very nice job, Utah, of staying 3-0 without him. And but if he's cleared to go, I really think he's got to go because UCLA has quarterback pressures. I mean, they can cause Utah to make mistakes, and it can be a long day. So I'm looking forward to this one. This might be the dark horse game of the weekend. This might be the upset of the weekend. UCLA and Utah, 3:30, Fox, Jason Benedetti, Brock Hewitt. Okay? Now, we're about to do something that hasn't really ever happened. Okay? And that is a Saturday night where all of the broadcast networks, ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC, and by the way, so is the CW, broadcasting sports all in the same night. I mean, it's never happened before. Ever, ever, ever. And it's never happened that they've all chosen college sports. Now, a lot of that has to do with the writer's strike. Okay, so, it's not the trend, but it is the fact that the writer's strike is happening. So, what do we have? 7:30 kick. You got Texas and Baylor. That game should be interesting. Number 3 Texas has played phenomenal, ball. Dave Aranda and Baylor. Can they keep it close? I think they can. Baylor loves to play Texas. Texas, this is the last shot because they're leaving for the SEC. It's on ABC. Dave Pasch, Dusty Dvorak, is on the call with Tommy Luckenbill handling the sidelines. I don't think Baylor can beat Texas, but I do think Baylor can cause problems. And so this should be an entertaining game. However, you know, Iowa and Penn State on CBS with Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson on the call in prime time. You know, Penn State is far better than Iowa, and Iowa's defense is really good. But the problem is that they're playing the game at State College, so 102,000 Penn State fans will be rallying up their fan base there. So I wouldn't step out on the limb on this one. But the last game I've listed here, number 6 Ohio State, number 9 Notre Dame on NBC. That's the game of the night. That may be that's the game of the day, to be honest. You've got two top 10 teams facing off. The last time Notre Dame played a game of this significance was back in the early 90s. I think it was 91, 92, when Jimmy Johnson's number 1 Miami Hurricanes went to South Bend to take on Lou Holtz's number 2 Notre Dame team. That was the famous Catholics versus convicts game that Notre Dame won by I think it was a single point. It was a very close game. Anyway, Ohio State coming to South Bend. Ohio State having problems at quarterback, deciding what's going on there. Notre Dame not having problems at that under those circumstances. This is a game that sets up for Notre Dame to win. I know a lot of people are still on the Ohio State bandwagon. They certainly have a ton of phenomenal athletes at Ohio State. But so does Notre Dame. And this might be the one game that Coach Freeman, has circled, and he's definitely going to want to get that done. So, there we go. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So, there's your 7 o'clock games, your primetime games. Texas Baylor on ABC. Iowa Penn State on CBS. Then you've got NBC with Ohio State and Notre Dame. And let me make sure that we're certainly not going to miss one here. And that is, here's, again, a few of the others. Oregon State, Washington State. That's the Pac-2, as we jokingly say. Oregon State has not lost to Washington State in a number of years at home. And Oregon State's a very good football team. They're certainly better. I think they might even be better than the number 14 ranking that they've got. So watch that. That might be a game to flip back and forth. Jeff Levering, Mark Halverick has got the call on that one. But Oregon State, Washington State should be a really good matchup of two teams that are the only two teams remaining after next year going into the in the Pac-2, as we say. But Oregon State, that game should be very, very interesting, and I don't see Washington State, even though Washington State beat Washington at home. Oregon State has a great running attack. Watch the balance of Oregon State's offense against Washington State's defense. That'll be the factor, but got to go with Oregon State here at home, and be interesting. Arkansas, LSU, Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit on the call for that one. That's it's an interesting game. It's an interesting thing that they picked that to be the primetime game for the SEC. But anyway, Arkansas has been inconsistent. LSU's been inconsistent. Is it conceivable that Arkansas can beat LSU at Death Valley? Yes. Is it likely? No. It's tough to play in Baton Rouge, and LSU plays a very good. They're at home. They're almost never beaten. So we'll see. Arkansas's got some very talented kids, but Got to look at LSU. Number 25, Florida, and is hosting Charlotte at the Swamp. This look, Florida's got to win this game and continue to get that momentum. This is an ESPN Plus game and it's an SEC Network Plus game. Okay, so there you go on that. All right, 10:30 on Fox with Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman on the call. It's USC Arizona State. SC should roll. Arizona State's got a good team, a much better team. They're there, but they're not quite there yet. So it's a Pac-12 game. It should be the second win in a row for USC over a Pac-12 team, and so look for that to be the game. California at Washington. That's ESPN with Dave Fleming and Brock Osweiler. That should be an interesting game from that standpoint. California should have won last week and they didn't. They left 21 points on the board. On the field. So Washington with Pennick and the crew they've got. Now Washington should win this one big, and Dave Fleming and Brock's got the call. Kent State, Fresno State. That's an interesting nationally. Kent State comes from the Cleveland area, going all the way out to the West Coast to play Fresno State. 10:30 on CBS Sports Network. Dave Ryan and Dante Smith on the call. I gotta favor the home team here with Fresno State. They're a very good team, and in the Mountain West and Kent State, we'll see. But anyway, that's our 10:30 game. So as we said, we got a lot of really good college games that we're looking at. We got some questions. Let me go there, and we'll go to the NFL here in a minute. Let's see what we got in the way of questions. Got a couple from Immaculate and hello. All right, 3:30 lineup across the board is pretty insane. Yeah, looking at the rankings of those games is going to be interesting. Yeah, after these games, we'll certainly have a pretty good idea, Immaculate, of what is going on. There's no question about it. There could be, as I said, there's the very strong potential of a lot of upsets this weekend, and we'll see. But yeah, it's going to be fun to watch those games and see how it turns out. And you got a comment on Lane Kiffin. Lane is number one option. He has been there. He's coached there, and now he's a proven head coach in the SEC. It's true, and a lot of people. Lane personally, he's one of those guys you either like him or you don't, and he is, Lane's an acquired taste. There isn't any question about that. But all that being said, going all the way back to my first meeting with Lane Kiffin when he was 14 years old, and his father was the defensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Monty Kiffin, who was the guy who created the Tampa 2 defense, which won a Super Bowl for John Madden for. Won the Super Bowl there for a couple of coaches, Tony Dungy being one of them, and it's he's Blaine's a good guy, and he's a great follow on Twitter, so check him out. All right, tell you what, and I can't get the wrong button. Hey, how's it going? Good to have you in the house there, buddy. All right, let's get back to our. Let's get back to what we got coming up on the NFL, and we got some really. It's kind of a hodgepodge hit miss. These are the 1:00 games on CBS on Sunday. The New England Patriots and the New York Jets. You got Buffalo at Washington. You got Denver at Miami. You got Indianapolis at Baltimore, and you got Tennessee at Cleveland. There is nothing on that slate that kind of jumps off at you. New England and New England at the Jets. For some reason, look, I'm not Sean McManus, so I don't program the network, but for some reason, um, that's where Nance and Romo is going to be. So must be some interest from that standpoint. Washington at Buffalo at Washington. Let's get that straight. Buffalo is at Washington. Washington is so far 2-0. Buffalo, as we know, lost the opener but came back and won. So it's going to be an interesting game from that standpoint. I will say this about Washington. Washington has done quite well with Eric Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator, and as long as Washington's offense responds to Bieniemy, they will be a team that you're going to have to be careful of. Now, can they beat Buffalo? I think they can. It all depends on on Buffalo's ability to put points on the board. Washington will put points on the board. Can Buffalo match the points? Buffalo is a favorite, and as they should be. So we'll see. This is a statement game potentially for Washington. If they could knock off a Buffalo, then people will start paying attention to them. Miami, Denver, this shouldn't even be close. Miami should just roll that one, but we'll see. Denver always is a tough team to play. Indianapolis, excuse me, not Indiana. Indianapolis at Baltimore. If Baltimore just plays the way they're capable of, then this shouldn't be a problem. There will be rain Saturday. There will be some rain early on Sunday. It shouldn't truly affect the game though. So Baltimore should roll over Indiana. Tennessee, Cleveland. Man, that's a toss up. That's you probably Cleveland because they're at home from that one. But we'll leave the handicapping to the handicapping people. All right. Here are the games. 1 o'clock on Fox. There we go. All right. 1 o'clock on Fox. It's New Orleans at Green Bay. Uh, it's kind of funny. I mean, you're 3 weeks into the season, you're saying, well, this is going to have to be a win, right? You got to have this is a must-win game, but it kind of is a must-win game for Green Bay. They don't want to go, into a situation where they're, uh, you know, upside down, 3 weeks into the season. And it's a statement game in many ways for New Orleans. A lot of people think New Orleans is the team to beat South this season, and they may very well be. But it's up to Derek Carr to prove that. Um, Interesting game is the Chargers against the Vikings in Minnesota. And this one is Justin Fields or Kirk Cousins going to actually show up in the way they're supposed to show up? Interesting matchup there. Whichever quarterback has a good day probably will end up winning it. Atlanta, Detroit. Atlanta surprisingly, undefeated so far. Detroit surprisingly also undefeated. Um, Detroit's a much better team than Atlanta, so that should be an interesting game. But if you're Lions fan, you this is one that you want to win. Houston at Jacksonville. Jacksonville is really playing very, very well. There's no reason why Jacksonville shouldn't beat Houston and keep on rolling. So there's that. Let's go to the 4 o'clock games on Sunday. The 4 o'clock games, CBS has one. Carolina is at Seattle. It should be an easy one for Seattle. Fox has the Chicago Kansas City game. Again, Kansas City at home is always tough, so should be a good game for Kansas City. Dallas, who so far has beaten both New York teams, goes out to the desert to play an Arizona team. Arizona's defense is good, but their offense isn't, so that's a problem. And so that simply means that probably Dallas will be 3-0 when this is when all is said and done when the dust settles out in the desert. So there you go. The night games on Sunday Night Football, I'm sorry. Pitt is at, yep, the Steelers going to play out in Vegas against the Raiders. Pittsburgh should go to 2-0 on that one. Vegas has a lot of guys hurt. Pitt, after they had a bad day against the 49ers on opening day, went to Cleveland, had a game against Cleveland, won that game. So Pittsburgh's probably going to be a little bit of a favorite in that game. Again, the problem with the Raiders, so many guys hurt. That is definitely a problem. All right, so we talked about the writer's strike and how it affected the games on, so many games being on broadcast TV when we had the situation on Saturday. Well, ABC knows that for the time being, they're not going to have any new shows on Monday. So we're seeing Monday Night Football on ABC, and we're also seeing it on ESPN, and they both start at the same time-ish. The game on Monday Night Football on ESPN starts at 7, and then the game a little after 8 o'clock on ABC. So it's Philadelphia at Tampa Bay. All right, so two teams that haven't lost in Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield is playing out of his mind for the Buccaneers, but Jalen Hurts is playing out of his mind for Philadelphia. This is going to be it could very well be a fun game, maybe the best game of the weekend in the pros. Let's see if Tampa Bay's defense can stop Philadelphia. Let's see if the Eagles' defense, which is banged up, can stop Baker Mayfield, and should be entertaining. So we'll talk a little bit more about Monday night on Monday night. So the show on Monday. So don't worry about that. But for right now, Philly at Tampa Bay on ABC, and then the Rams against Cincinnati. The Rams have played well so far. Cincinnati has not. They haven't won yet, and that's something that we really, really, are hoping that they get their act together soon. Because if they don't, they're going to be, they'll be out before. They'll be out of that division before things get started. So Cincinnati's a much better team than they played, and so we'll see how they play against the Rams. So that's again, we'll talk a lot more about that on Monday, but that's our slate of games for Saturday and Sunday. Now let's go back to Major League Baseball. Mentioned it earlier, Friday night on Apple TV, tonight on Apple TV, Giants-Dodgers. That should be a really good game. That series means more to the Giants than it does to the Dodgers. That being said, they're bitter rivals, so I wouldn't at all be surprised. You don't. If you're the Dodgers, you don't want to you've already won the division, but you don't want to start resting players, because then you lose your momentum and it's a mess. So you want to be playing at your best when you go into the playoffs. So I don't think the Dodgers are going to, sit the entire team here to play against the Giants, especially the fact that they don't like the Giants and the Giants don't like the Dodgers. So that's the game tonight on Apple TV. Very entertaining game. Some more pennant race baseball. Toronto at Tampa. That's a 4 o'clock game tomorrow on MLB Network. Check that one out. And then Sunday night, the game is the Phillies and the Mets. That game is at 7. It's not at 1. We'll have to change that. But yeah, that game is at 7 and not at 1 on ESPN Sunday. So that's on ESPN. Mets, Phillies. Not quite sure, frankly, why they're showing that game, because it really, the Phillies are in the hunt for the playoffs, but the Phillies are likely in the playoffs. I mean, they basically have to lose every game between now and the end of the season, which, as we said, is next Sunday. So I don't see that happening at all. So there you go. There's that. All right, now let's go back to soccer. The MLS is in full swing again after we had that timeout for international play. And so here's your schedule on Apple and on MLS Season Ticket. Atlanta is against Montreal. That's a 7:30 start, and that game is in Atlanta. You've got DC United and Red Bull. That game is in Washington. You got FC Cincinnati, best team in the league, against Charlotte. That game's being played in Cincinnati. You got New York FC against. By the way, these are all 7:30 starts. New York FC against Toronto. That game's being played at Red Bull Arena over in Jersey. Philly in LAFC. That game's being played in Chester, PA, which of course is Philly. And now we go to 8:30 games. Chicago Fire, and they play New England Revolution. That game's at Soldier Field in Chicago. You got FC Dallas at Columbus. That game's being played Toyota Stadium in Frisco, which is Dallas. Minnesota United against St. Louis. That game's being played in Minneapolis. Sporting KC against Houston Dynamo. Again, 8:30 start, and that's at Kansas City. Real Salt Lake and Vancouver. That's a 9:30 start, and that game's being played in Utah at Salt Lake City. You've got Portland and Colorado playing each other. That's a 10:30 game. That game's being played in Portland. And then San Jose takes on Nashville. That's also a 10:30 game, and that's being played in San Jose. Now, we do have 2 Sunday matches, and this one is a very big one, to be honest. And that's Orlando FC against Inter Miami. Inter Miami will probably not have Lionel Messi on the pitch for that game. He on Wednesday night he left the game early. That was a game against Toronto, basically because he had exhaustion at that point. So maybe what we will see is if Miami can get up on Orlando, then. And by the way, the game's being played in Orlando. Maybe what they'll do is, they won't have to play him if for whatever reason they are behind Orlando, maybe by a point or so. Maybe Messi comes back on the pitch for the last 15 or 20 minutes to see what he can do in that regard. So we'll see. He's not going to start for sure, so we'll see that. That's a 7:30 game on Sunday. The game is on League Pass. MLS League Pass. And then the final game for the weekend for the MLS is Austin at the LAC Galaxy. That game will be played in Austin, not in LAC. So there you go. That's where we're going for the weekend in the MLS. Okay, so you've got baseball. We've given you both college football as well as the NFL. So look, it's going to be a fun weekend. We've said that we'll know a lot more about Colorado at this point on Monday. We'll know a lot more about Alabama. How good or bad are they? We'll know a lot more about whether or not FSU is going to have the inside track to the ACC championships. So plenty to talk about on the weekends. We hope that you enjoy the games that are going on this weekend on both Major League Baseball, in the MLS, in college, and in the pros. Okay? So, all right, gang. We will see you again on Monday, Tuesday. That's right, Tuesday. We have Monday something else. That, of course, is a holiday. And so we will not be here for the holiday. It's Yom Kippur. And so we will be back on Tuesday, and we'll go through all that, because Tuesday will be good too, because we'll have all the ratings in at that point. So Tuesday, 10 a.m. Or if you missed the 10 a.m. show, obviously you can watch it anytime at your leisure. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and like us. We're likable, so by all means do that. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend. We will be back with you on Tuesday. Until then, I'm Jim Williams for Stream On. And by the way, you can get this as a podcast on Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeart, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Okay? So Take care, everybody. Have a nice weekend.